Hello, everybody, and welcome to week number one, match number one of another season of the Premodern Showdown series. This is season 6. I'm Michael Hoyp. I'm joined in the booth by commentator and competitor Chris DiBiase. How's it going, Chris?
It's going great, Mike. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for being patient. We've had a few technical difficulties, and then I was also doing some last minute prep stuff. But we have our first match. We have James Smits. So for those who might not be familiar with James, he is a competitor that has been he was a top performer, especially in like it sounds weird like talking about like the COVID era of like pre-modern if we're to the point where we have different eras. But he would just be a consistent performer in every tournament, and he was our PSS 3 champion. But he had some real life things that caused him to defer his invitation, as we typically invite the winner to the next PSS. And now he's able to do this PSS 6. So welcome back, James. Hopefully you can shake off the rust and we could see some top play from him. And then on the other side of the match, we have Michael Phillips, and he has been a traveler that I have seen a lot in the Midwest tournaments. So whether it's in Madison or Milwaukee or LobsterCon, I've seen him in a lot of stuff. And so he's from the Nashville area, but he has made it up to a bunch of the events that I've been at. So a real traveler, and the deck that he has really been performing with lately is Enchantress, that he's played with a lot and tuned and had some success with. And that is one of the decks he's brought. So that brings me to the graphic that we have up. Each player has brought 3 decks to the tournament, and then each week their opponent will ban one of the decks, and then they pick from the remaining 2, and then they play a match. So James has brought Red Green Goblins, Red Green Oath, and then Blue Black Stifle Knot / Psychotog. And then Michael Phillips, also with the Red Green Goblins, he has the Rock, and then his Enchantress deck. So Michael has banned the Red Green Oath from James, and James has banned the Enchantress. So Chris, do you want to make any predictions? Did you know what was in front of them? That, like, what would you do if you were in their shoes? How do you think you would pick from the remaining 2?
So I think there's an interesting sort of 4D chess match here in that I certainly know from Michael, right, Goblins is not his main deck, and I'm not sure how comfortable he would feel going into an RG Goblins mirror match, right? So that could be a factor here. Um, I think if I'm James, I am picking UB Psychonaut, and I think if I am Michael, I am going with the Rock.
Okay, let's jump down to the decks and figure out what we have. So first up, we have James, and he has picked the Red Green Goblins list. So I have that on display. So there are a number of Red Green Goblins lists in this tournament. I will go over kind of what the decision points usually when you build a Goblins list. One is if you have the green splash, and almost everybody I think at this point has been playing Naturalize. I think it's been a long time since I see the mono red or the splash for black. So green is very common. I would say that's the default. And then whether you have Rishadan Port or Wasteland, it looks like James has opted for Rishadan Port. And then it's just some Goblin Matron targets, whether you have a Goblin Tinker in the main, how many Gem Home Incinerators, whether you have 3 or 4 Sieging Commanders. Those usually are the differences. And then the number of Skirk Prospectors. So James has 3 Skirk Prospectors, 1 Sharpshooter. He has 2 Gem Home Incinerators, and he has no Tinkerer. Is there anything else about the Red Green Goblins list that you want to talk about that James is piloting?
No, I think you've nailed some of the key sort of decision points in the spots where you can kind of fill with the numbers. Prospector being one of them. So I'm interested to see how that will play out for them in this match. And then I guess we can think about the sideboard in the context of what he's going up against. But I think you've got it covered.
Yeah, we'll talk about sideboards once we're there, and plus
Yeah.
and so we'll reveal what Michael has selected, and it is, as I need to search this up, also has picked the Red Green Goblins list. So we will have a mirror match, And
Okay.
as I bring this over, we will see. I'll point out the differences. So Michael has Wastelands instead of Russian Ports. He has, I believe, an extra Naturalize, and then he has 2 Skirk Prospectors, and
Looks like an extra gem palm.
yes. So those are the differences. So I mean, very similar lists. I mean, this is not a matchup where you want Naturalize, especially in the main. Not that you want it in the board either. Oh, they both have 3
Yeah.
Naturalize. Okay. I said, yeah. I guess I didn't point out that James had 3
Yeah.
Naturalizes. So yeah. So we'll get to see. I mean, I think in terms of my experience, I think Rishon Port is a really big card in the mirror. Especially if you're on the draw, it can allow you to tap their turn 3 so they can't play a war chief,
Yep.
and then you can untap and play a war chief, and you don't have to use like the wasteland kind of thing. So we'll get to see this mirror. Is there anything you want to talk about specifically for Michael's list?
No, I mean, as we said before, really the only difference here is an extra gem palm and 1 fewer Skirk Prospector, and then of course the Wasteland Rishadan Divide. And I think that favors James here. You just can't get the same value out of Wasteland in this match
Mhm.
as you might in some others. So
Yeah, especially because like wasteland, you could get rid of a color, but this the green color is not relevant. I mean,
yeah,
obviously your
yeah,
man the goblins decks can be very mana hungry, especially if you go to like a
yeah.
longer game. But yeah, so very close, very similar. But let's jump down to the match. If you want to let our
Okay.
players know that they can get started, we're going to kick things off for our Premodern Showdown series. So usually I like to talk about like step 1 for all the goblins matchups is, do you have a lackey? And then if you do, then does your opponent have a response to that lackey? And those are kind of different games that they develop, because if the lackey's answered, then you kind of go into like the mid game or the late game, which are very different than if a goblin lackey is able to stay and play. Which I guess in this matchup, if you have so many one drops or whatnot, I would be very surprised if James is keeping a hand that doesn't have a way to deal with a lackey. So Michael
Yeah.
does has a turn 1 lackey, and then James does have the Bog Fanatic, which I think actually in
Yep.
this matchup might be a better card that you want in your opening hand.
I'm inclined to agree. I think it's actually very similar to the burn mirror, where leading on a lackey I'm sorry, leading on a fanatic gives you some play that you otherwise wouldn't have.
Yeah, it just gives you all the options. Like, I mean, I don't know in what I guess if you're on the play, you could have a Mog Fanatic, and then a second turn you could have like a pile driver that could block
Sure.
uh, a lackey, and then it always has that failsafe that if they try and like remove your
Right.
creatures, that you just can get rid of it. So Michael's follow up is a Mog Fanatic of his own, and it looks like he's only on 1 land right here. So he passed a turn after playing that, and James is going to get a
Yep.
second land, a mountain, because obviously the forests are not very good in this matchup. Yeah, so as we develop, like this is the game. So that step
Yeah.
1 is answered. The lackey is then
Right.
I think a big part comes down to, do you have a Goblin War Chief? And if a
Right.
Goblin War Chief stays in play, then like boards are just not safe. Like from your opponent, like
Right.
if you untap with a Goblin War Chief, then you can really have
Sure.
explosive turns. Whether it's a sharpshooter or a matron into something, or just ringleaders are cheap, or just pile drivers. There's a lot of
Yep.
things you can do with a War Chief in play. Plus, like the cost reduction is really important. And then once we get that past that stage, then it's all about like the goblin ringleaders. So if you're exchanging resources,
Sure.
you have a matron into a ringleader, and then or like just ringleader on its own, and kind of then the end game is, do you have like a siege gang commander, or sometimes there's boards where
Right.
sharpshooter comes into play.
I think we're also seeing here some of the interesting tensions in mulligan decisions, right? So you have the lackey and the one-hander, but if you lose that lackey, like you said, it can be a mana-hungry deck,
Mhm.
and those fanatics are only going to be able to hold things back for so long.
Yeah, and especially like where James has the card that we talked about, Rich and Import, as compared to Wasteland.
Right.
There was just a basic land, and it's like James is able to use it on his turn, and then
Yep.
untap and have that access to that third, well, or potentially fourth mana. But it looks like Michael has found a second source of mana in
Yep.
Carplusion Forest, and he's going to make a third Mog Fanatic.
That's a full Warren of fanatics there.
Yes. Chat is rooting for a player based on their mountain choice. I know I default to the unglued lands that I like a lot, but I think James, is he using the APAC ones? I think that's what they are, which are also pretty impressive. So that Skirk Prospector died, was that because the Mog Fanatic was used, or was that a block? I missed that. I guess
unclear.
I wasn't paying attention enough, so apologies for that. But yeah,
You're in the tank. It's okay.
Yeah. So the pile driver is getting in there, which is interesting because it's just shipping in for one. I guess I think that means that James is going to play other goblins post combat.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I would think if you're only exchanging one damage for one, you might as well put it back. Whoa, we got whereby with some celebrations, some balloons went by. Oh, even more. I don't know him. Oh my goodness, what is going on?
It's a goblin balloon. It's a goblin balloon brigade.
I can't remember. Yeah, I was saying that. I try to think if there are certain words that like will trigger and whereby for if you say certain things, but I'm trying to think what he would be saying that would be triggering like a celebration, or I don't know. I don't know what would trigger that. But if anyone's really familiar with whereby, if they know what is causing that to happen, but I'm very amused. Oh, there's certain hand movements that do it. Okay, maybe he was clapping. Like if I go like this.
Oh.
Do I get?
You're not getting any balloons. I want to tell you, man. Okay, so we've got a pretty clear board.
Chad has confirmed that they are non-snow Ice Age mountains. Okay. Yeah, the board's cleared thanks to the Mog Fanatics took out a Lackey and another Skirk Prospector.
Yep. All right.
Okay, so I'm just interested that James left the Rishton port untapped. I guess that means he has a land in the post combat. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say otherwise I confuse you. So War Chief plus Pile Driver is 5 damage, so that will come in and put Michael to 12.
All right, fetching.
Yep, and then I mean the port has been. I mean, it obviously it's compounded that Michael's having mana issues this game, but like the Rishton port has been pretty good for James this whole game.
Yeah. You know, if you have the mana advantage to begin with and you have an active port, it really makes it difficult for Michael to start shifting into a mid game that's going to be sustainable.
Sure. Yeah, like James already has the board, and if he's able to like devote a little bit of his mana to disrupt Michael, it's really tough. So Ringleader's going to come down, and it looks like it's just going to be one card, but that card is a Siege King Commander.
Yeah. If you're only going to get one and you have the mana, it's not a bad one to get.
And that's a card that, like, if it stays in play and you untap with it, you're just going to have really good board control. I mean, I guess in this situation, it's just going to kill your opponent because it makes a million goblins and then you have the Pile Driver. But yeah, if you untap with a Sieging in the mirror, then it's very powerful. All right.
And Michael scoops. Okay.
So that first game will go to James. And now we can take a peek at our deck list, and we can talk about sideboarding here.
Sure.
So let's jump over to the deck screen. So I have Michael's list up. So his sideboard is 3 Tormod's Crypts, 1 Goblin Tinker, 2 Pyroblast, 2 Red Elemental Blast, 3 Pyrokinesis, 1 Naturalize, 2 Tranquil Domain, Sharpshooter. Cards I'm looking at are 3 Pyrokinesis and 1 Goblin Sharpshooter. So 3 Naturalize are going to come out, and then so we need to cut 1 more card to make room for a Sharpshooter. So I mean, I personally would cut a Pile Driver. I think that in the mirror that like the Pile Driver is kind of like a win more card that
I can see that.
It just does a bunch of damage, and usually in those situations it's because you're winning, or if you Goblin Matron for it, you can usually get like pretty much any other card in that situation, and you still be fine.
Sure.
So I personally would cut Pile Driver. I've gone down to just one copy in the mirror, but it looks like Michael doesn't have that many cards he wants to bring in for sideboarding.
Yeah, no, I agree. It gets blocked by a lot. Gem Palm is an easy way to remove it, and it doesn't help you win the long term. Obviously, we didn't get to see a good like mid end game here because Michael got kind of stymied on mana, but it doesn't add anything to your long term game plan. And I think win more is a good way of describing it.
Yep. All right. So let's pull up the other deck list. We can see James has 2 Tormod's Crypts, 2 Pyroblast, 2 Red Elemental Blast, 2 Tranquil Domain, 1 Naturalize, 1 Tinker. So all those cards I think are the same. I guess it's 1 less Tormod's Crypt. 1 Sparksmith. So that's a card that might come in. There is a Goblin King, which has situations where it could be good. It also could backfire.
Yes, it does. It does.
2 Pyrokinesis. So there's 1 less than Michael, and then a Sharpshooter. So I'd be looking at all those bottom cards.
So could this?
Yep.
Yeah. Right, could we be thinking like Sparksmith, the 2 Pyrokinesis, the Sharpshooter?
Yeah, I would say Sparksmith does have a little bit of downside. There are situations where if the board, I have had like mirror matches where like boards like get kind of cluttered, but there's also, I mean, if you just run it out on turn 2, it's like, well, you pretty much need to answer it, otherwise you're not going to be able to commit to the board, and you can kind of like pick your spots of when you're going to do it. And so yeah, I think it's fine. The only other card I would be looking at is maybe Goblin King if that wants to come in. But so we'll see if we see any of those sideboard cards. We'll jump back down to the match, as it looks like Michael is starting off with a Mog Fanatic.
Yeah, hopefully he's able to develop his mana a little bit more in this game, so we can see a little bit more of the dynamic between the two. Okay, Dueling Fanatics.
Yep, so consistent start for James where he opened up on the Mog Fanatic on the draw for both the games. Michael looking for a second land this time. He's going to attack first. I guess so. I'm trying to think of the situations where, I guess you just always, given that it's a Mog Fanatic, I don't think there's ever an incentive not to block there. So
no, because if you're gonna lose it anyway if they want you to lose it. And he's opening up with 2 more.
So I guess very similar in the sense.
Deja vu here.
Yes, that James had the opening Mog Fanatic, and then Michael has 3 of them. So
yeah.
I did get a Mog Fanatic playmat. They did like a.
I got the same one, my friend.
So yep. I might have to use that or put that on display at some point. But yeah,
I'm telling you, Mountain plus Mog Fanatic, best engine in Premodern.
All right, so Pile Driver gun comes down for James, and then Michael's going to have, looks like a Sharpshooter. So the unhasted Sharpshooter, if that stays in play, with the combination of the Fanatics, really can clear up a board. One thing that, I mean, you always have to be conscious is the card of Pyrokinesis, but luckily the Mog Fanatics, like, you don't feel so bad about like putting them into play because you always get some use out of them. You don't have to have any mana up. You can just always activate them.
Yep. Right, in this case, a Pyrokinesis just ends with Pile Driver being removed.
Yeah.
But you're going to get some value out of it. I'm guessing Michael right now is just crossing his fingers that Sharpshooter lives to be able to do its thing.
Okay, well...
but nope.
I would say, because if James didn't have an answer, it's like really difficult for him to put like any card on the board, because just like one Mog Fanatic activation basically clears up, like would clear up two toughness creatures. Probably even maybe even more. There's a lot of Goblin Sharpshooter math that like if you're not used to it, it definitely has some tricky plays, and I've definitely seen people miss triggers, and I'm sure I've missed a ton myself. So
no, I saw some of the fancy Sharpshooter work you did during the PSL. So
that was very fun. That like my opponent had a pretty formidable board, and I had 2 Sharpshooters that were active, and my opponent was like at 38 life or something, and I killed him.
It was pretty brutal. I was incredibly impressed. It was fun to watch.
So after the incinerator,
Yeah.
James has a fanatic, and so
Yeah.
these fanatics get at each other. Uh,
Okay, mana's developing.
and a lackey. So a late lackey, but
Yeah.
it's nice that the way that things have been sequenced for Michael, that there's been
Right.
2 Mog Fanatics and a Gem-Home Incinerator that get off the board.
Yep.
So the lackey has a lot better chance of hitting. But the problem is when it's sitting against a 1/2 in the form of Goblin Pile
Yep.
Driver, it's a little bit
Yep.
tough. But nope, more Fanatics.
MVP, man.
Yeah. So the Fanatics have been showing up in clusters and then James is going to also add a War Chief to his board. So again, he's going to attack for that chunk of 5. And so I think this is especially since Michael doesn't have anything here with that 3 untapped mana. So that last turn he just went lackey. So it's like
Yep.
he didn't have a matron, he didn't have a ringleader, he didn't have a pyrokinesis. So yeah, it looks like unless he has like a sieging commander that he's looking to deploy, it looks like he has kind of a weak hand. Yeah, the pile driver doesn't do a great job on defense. I guess you can trade. Well, he attacked with the Mog Fanatic. I was gonna say you could block both creatures
Yeah.
and then use the Mog Fanatic to shoot one, so you get rid of either a pile driver or a War Chief. But that's a losing proposition if your opponent's playing hasty Goblin Ringleaders.
Yeah.
So
Ugh.
we're definitely at that mid game point where James has definitely has that War Chief in play and has the Ringleader. So both those in combination, he's able to use his mana and add stuff to the board and get more cards in his hand. It's pretty much checking all the boxes that you want in a game that's kind of that mid to developing late game. Yeah, so if there's not a pyrokinesis here, then I think James is in really, really good shape.
Yeah, at this point, things are really snowballing.
More Fanatics. That's something I think at this point it should just be expected. So, all right, we're going to attack with all 4 goblins. We're going to trigger the pile driver. So the pile driver will be a 7 power. And then we have a couple of 2/2s and then a 1/1. So pile driver is going to get in the way of, I don't know, the verbal cue for Michael, or if that's blocking a War Chief, or if that's blocking the pile driver. I think we'll have to wait till combat finishes to figure out exactly what he's blocking.
And we're going to sack, get rid of the pile driver.
Okay. So trying to minimize all the damage.
Yep. Pyrokinesis here would be clutch.
Yeah, so there is the CJ commander.
All right.
But the problem is, I mean, like, we know James has another ringleader. I mean, I don't remember. I didn't even pay attention to what the other goblins revealed were.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, if you're able to live, I guess Michael is at 9.
He's at 9.
There's not a great attack from this situation. Like, I mean, I think if James attacked with everything, then you line up Siege Commander on the 1/1, and then 3 tokens would block a War Chief, I think. Oh, there's a Sharpshooter. Never mind.
I was about to say, yeah.
Okay, so this just clears up all the tokens. You shoot the Siege Commander for 1,
Fanatic.
and then Fanatic, and then you get another point, and then you attack for 4.
Yep.
You're dealing 5 and have an untapped Sharpshooter, I think.
Yep.
I might have even missed a point of damage in there. Yeah, that Sharpshooter with the haste and again, with no pyrokinesis, then I think this is pretty much just game over for Michael.
Is that
Dirk Prospector? So that's just a different way of untapping the Siege Gang.
Yep.
So you attack for 5 here. Oh, with the lackey, then this is attack for 6, and then with shoot down 2, Mog Fanatic down to 1.
Yeah, and then again.
And then, again. So this should
That
be the
that
match.
should be it.
Oh, the lackey will put in a Skirk Prospector just for kicks.
Yep, sure.
Yep. And
that's it.
Thumbs up for Michael. He says, you got it. So we got to see kind of like the different stages of the Goblin Mirror, but definitely when we got to the point where either a struggling at Michael on mana, or the point where he just had that one turn where he did not really have a powerful turn that that really, I think, changed the difference. So
you noted earlier the power of War Chief in this matchup, and I think we saw that on display, right? Just the ability to answer that Siege Gang Commander with a hasty sharpshooter, really kind of took the knees out from whatever Michael was going to be able to do.
Okay, let's jump down and we can listen into the players and get some insight on how the match went and maybe their preparation or thinking what was going to be picked from the players. If I can find the right scene. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So I will unmute the players.
The way. And then I'm like off to the races. And if you're playing Dreadnought, then I figure this lackey's going to hit. So
that's the thing. I don't think I because you had both red-green goblins in the rock. Like playing Dreadnought was just going to be tough, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the discard piece from the rock. Obviously, Deed is great. The creature destruction, like the rock's just going to own that, and the rock's also going to be good against goblins. But I figure, so I can't play Knot, so I have to play Goblins. I'm like, there's a good chance he's going to play Goblins too. So, and it's kind of a bit of a coin flip just based off drawing and honestly who loses the die roll.
I predicted you would be on Goblin. I thought that was the most likely scenario. And then I thought, okay, well, if I play, like, I've kind of struggled against Goblins with the rock.
That's fair. Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if it was good enough, even though it's like an Engineer Plague deck. I felt fairly comfortable in the idea of the mirror of like, I think I know what I'm doing. When it, the cards I'm looking for, the cards that are important, blah, blah, blah. But man, you just crushed me.
The draws were in my favor there. Let's put it that way. And then, the sharpshooter after I take out your sharpshooter and kind of like I have both Skirk Prospectors that I got off the ringleader, right? It was just obviously a sick ringleader as well.
Oh yeah. Like you hitting that War Chief and the ringleader, like that was so good.
Yeah. I don't know. Are Hoyp and Chris, are they just listening to us?
Yep.
I don't know.
Here, I can unmute them now too.
Yeah.
Which we haven't done yet. Hey guys.
Yeah, we're totally listening to you.
Yeah, we're listening. Stream was listening. So yeah, I would say you guys are just doing all the work.
I don't think I said anything too embarrassing.
No. Yeah, I would say. Well, we'll see if Michael rejoins us. But yeah, I think you guys, we kind of caught the tail end, or at least where Michael was kind of talking about his deck selection, and then I think you explained kind of how you led down the path of playing goblins. That all makes sense. And then, I guess...
Yeah, I think the most salient point that we talked about right at the open is that I think actually that being on the draw is favorable here.
Okay.
Because goblins, and I think the mirror wants to hit every land drop and loves responding, right? If you have to be both on offense and responding, goblins can struggle, right? But if it gets to just kind of respond and then catch up and then overtake, it can do really well.
Yeah, I'll say I think your list is also better set up to do that because of Rishon Import. The games, like if I've talked about, I was talking about on stream that on your turn 2 and Michael's turn 3, if you're able to like upkeep tap a mana, so he can't play Goblin War Chief on turn 3, then you can untap and play Goblin War Chief. It like can really change the dynamic of a game. So.
Totally. Well, in game 1, obviously, he kept a 1-lander as well. Then I've got Port turn 3, turn 2.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, worked well.
Michael, is there anything that you wanted to add?
I just want to say congratulations, and he just rolled me over. It felt good.
Yeah.
I mean, I did keep the one lander. When we were talking about this before, where I had a Goblin Lackey and 2 Mog Fanatics. So I figured if he's on the Goblin's Mirror, puts a guy in front of mine, as long as it's not Mog Fanatic, I can clear out of the way, hit with the Lackey, and be all right. And then if he was on the Dreadnought plan, like this Lackey's going to hit, on turn 2. So it was a risky keep, but I felt like it was worthwhile. But missing my land drops, obviously, that didn't help. I feel like the biggest impact in both games, though, was he hit his War Chiefs and the ringleaders, but mainly the War Chief, where I did not. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than it's a really good game. It's well fought, well played.
Yeah, there certainly were a lot of Mog Fanatics, I will say that much.
Oh my god. Game 2, I think, had 6 of the 8 Mog Fanatics.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, it was, I mean, Mog Fanatic, I feel like, is a really, really important card in the in the Goblin's Mirror.
Yeah.
Obviously, you gotta clear their Mog Fanatics. You gotta clear, you can't let a Lackey hit you, or anything like that. Now, when they put 2 toughness guys in the way, it's a little, but yeah, it was his draws were perfect. Very, very well played.
All right.
I tried to bait you a bunch as well. You resisted the bait, which I was bummed on, but attacking into, with my 1-2 pile driver into your 2 Mog Fanatics.
No. Yeah, I mean, I figure you take 1 for a little while, but
oh, you didn't want a 2 for 1 yourself? That's
no,
a bummer.
No.
Yeah.
No. It was good.
Yeah, fun games.
All right. With that, I think we're going to let our players go. So we're done with our first round. Yep. And next up, we have Chris is going to move from the booth down to the hot seat. He's going to be up against Nick Mayo. And James, you're going to switch spots. So you're going to be doing commentary with me. So we're going to take a quick break as I get some of the stuff set up.
Yep.
It will not be as big of a delay as it was for the first match. So sit tight, everyone. Just hang out and chat. And we will be back for round 2 of the Premodern Showdown Series 6. Thanks, everyone.